My grandmother died when I was in prison, and I couldn't go to her funeral because I was incarcerated, obviously. And there was a lot of older brothers in prison. I was young, very young, 18, and they really supported me. I mean, I think it's really binary in prison. You either come out a better criminal, or you do something with it. And through that experience, every time I wanted to get into something, because everything that you want to get into in the streets, you can get to in prison. It's just different. And every time I wanted to get into something, an older brother would be there and be like, no, why don't you come do this? Why don't you come do this? And I think three salient things that really impacted me, because I was around old heads. And it's really, and I look back now, I'm an old head, right? So, about to be 50. So I see it now, is I always wanted to be around old heads, because old heads, there's so much wisdom and experience, and they've seen so much. And so they introduced me to Bible college, which gave me some type of spiritual backing, even though I was terrible when I came out of college. Came out of prison and went to college. Toastmasters, which is probably one of the most valuable skills I ever had. They had Toastmasters in prison, and it taught me the basis to articulate my thoughts. Right? And then the third thing would be alternatives to violence, AVP. So AVP is a program about nonviolence that started in the 70s with the Quakers. And the Quakers believe that there's good in everything, and God in everyone and everything. But AVP introduced me to some outside community sponsors that wrote to the judge on my behalf to let me out of prison. And so, and this is how the universe works. I was actually in church yesterday, Kevin, and the pastor said, "Does God have a history with you of coming through?" And for me, yes. And so how can I ever doubt him? So as I'm going through this process, our frat brother, my line brother now, who I was 2 years older than, would write me. And he was saying, obviously I didn't graduate. I had to get my GED in prison. And he said, "I'm going to Lincoln University." And I was like, wow. But Lincoln was D3. They were a national powerhouse in running, but I was recruited D1. And I remember I had just got my high school diploma, and so I applied to Lincoln from prison. I sent my application from prison, and they accepted me while I was in prison. And this is when Lincoln was trying to get enrollment up, whatever the case may be. And I got my acceptance letter. I sent my acceptance letter that I received in prison to my sentencing judge, and he amended my sentence. And I remember I'm in the courtroom with him, older white man, Judge Thurman Norman Barron, and he says to me, "Listen, I'm going to give you another chance." And he never did. 18 years on Superior Court bench, he never changed someone's sentence. And he said, "I'm going to give you a chance, but I'm not going to give you too much time. I'm going to let you out of prison August 9th. And so just on Saturday, I celebrated 29 years of walking out of prison. And I walked out of prison onto Lincoln's campus 9 days. I walked out on August 9th, went to Lincoln for freshman week, August 18th, with $50 in my pocket. And Lincoln changed my life. They converted an old mail room into into a room. And I mean, kind of the rest is history. Like Lincoln changed me.
Let me ask you this, because again, your journey is instructive for everyone to know not necessarily just what's possible, but the power of resilience. And at some point in time, I remember when we met many years ago, you latched onto this idea of being an educational entrepreneur because you felt the system really wasn't helping kids like you were, and you also saw that there was so much talent and potential in prison, guys who fell off by the wayside because they didn't get a chance. So when you decided you wanted to pursue an educational career, how did you link the education with the entrepreneur mission?
So, it goes back again, like, I think everything happens for the good of God. Right? And, it's not that I'm this overzealous about being, a Christian and religious, but when you just start seeing the linkage of life. So, no, I wanted to be an attorney. That was my goal, to be an attorney. And I sat down with Dr. Wachuku, our department head at Lincoln. I was a triple major, history, black studies, and education. And I said, I got accepted to Temple Law School and grad school. And he said, well, Dave, you have a felony. You might not be able to practice law. And so I said, okay, I'll go to Temple for African American Studies. So the reason I'm bringing this in is because now we're talking about Afrocentricity with Molefe Asante. So if you take Afrocentricity and concentricity, or Afrocentric and concentric, now you start seeing the interconnectedness of it. So I said, okay, I'll be a teacher. So I did my student teaching, was student teacher of the year, and got hired in Hartford County, Maryland. If, for the viewers, to give you all some proximity. But I didn't tell them about my crime. So they hired me because they wanted more young black teachers, particularly males. And I got the job, but I didn't tell them about my record. So I walked out, and they were like, "You better get your fingerprints." I said, "Damn." Let me tell you, let me come back and tell you something. So I went back and told them, and they were like, "Don't call us, we'll call you." And I was like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? So during college, I had been writing my judge and sending him my transcripts, but he never responded. So finally, I graduate. I called Judge Barron's chambers, and Pam, his secretary, would answer. And I said, I just don't know what to do. I can't get a job. I have a degree. I can't get a job. And she said, okay, hold on. She comes back and says, Judge Barron wants to see you. So I drive to Delaware. I go to see Judge Barron. And it's the first time I saw him since he sentenced me, and then since he let me out. And he said, I believe in you. We'll get you a job. At the same time, Baltimore City Public Schools was hiring for teachers. The recruiter was our frat brother that I didn't know. And he said, do you have a kid charge, like a sexual charge? I said, no. Do you have a gun charge? No. Do you have a drug charge? No. You're hired. Let's go. So I got the job teaching. I taught 1 year, became an administrator the very next year. But the system is a system, Kev. The systems are not failing. I was just on a show earlier today, right? And we know systems aren't failing. Systems are getting the results that they're designed to get. And it's to keep a permanent underclass, to keep subservient to the hierarchy. And so I was seeing that. And then I was blessed to meet through Dr. Freeman Verbowski, amazing mentor, man. I mean, he pledged the wrong frat. Shout out to my alphas, but man, he pledged the wrong frat. But he introduced me to Kim Statham. And Kim was doing some innovative work with New School Venture Fund. And I had left the system and became director of student support services. And student support services back then, and you know this, Kev, was everything touchy-feely that was not academic, but it was important. And she said, I love the idea that you have. Have you thought about going on your own? That's when I took my background as an educator and intuitively my background as an entrepreneur. So growing up, and I know you got me only by like 1 year, good brother, but I know you're only 51. But when I was growing up, you had to hustle. So I had paper routes. I was cutting grass. The people who were on my paper route, I was cutting their grass and shoveling their snow. So I've always been an educator. I mean, I always been an entrepreneur. So I just merged the two and said, how can I work with a system but not for a system? Because the system will try to crush you.
Thanks for listening to What I Want to Know. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app so you can explore other episodes and dive into our discussions on the future of education. And write a review of the show. I also encourage you to join the conversation and let me know what you want to know using hashtag WIWTK on social media. That's hashtag WIWTK. For more information on Stride and online education, visit stridelearning.com. I'm your host, Kevin P. Chavous. Thank you for joining What I Want to Know.